Mr. Mayor, we're live.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I'd like to welcome everybody to the council meeting of Wednesday, April 23rd. Before we proceed with the land acknowledgement, a couple of housekeeping items. While in chamber, please put your phones to silent if you don't mind. And when you come to the mic to talk during open forum, and council members, talk directly into the microphone and adjust it so you're talking directly into it, as this meeting is being recorded and live streamed for people watching at home and will be put on the YouTube channel after. The Township of Oro-Medonte acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people and ancestral territory of the Huron-Wendat. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. It continues today as the home for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the historic Métis community in Penetangwisheen. The Anishinaabe people continue to have an enduring relationship with this land, specifically the Chippewas of Rama First Nations, the Chippewa Tri-Council, and the Williams Treaties First Nations. The Huron-Wendat Nation also continues to pay respect and protect their ancestors and heritage on this land. We honor the Indigenous history and culture that has thrived for millennia in this territory and the treaties that bind us together as partners in the spirit of a shared, sustainable, and prosperous future. We are all treaty people. Our commitment begins with acknowledging the truth so that we can move forward towards reconciliation. Miigwech. Madam Clerk, may we have a draft motion to adopt the agenda, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025 be received and adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. Is there anyone that has any pecuniary interest to disclose? Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to disclose for item 7A, the public meeting related to the amendments to fees under the Ontario Building Code Act, as I own a company in which would potentially apply for building permits under this.
Thank you very much. Any other members? Seeing none. We have no closed session items this week. Madam Clerk, may we have the draft motion for the two sets of minutes, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that the draft minutes of council meeting held on Wednesday, April the 9th, 2025, and the minutes of the special council meeting held on Wednesday, April the 9th, 2025 be received and adopted as printed and circulated.
All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. Recognitions and achievements, there's none this week, other than I would say that we've, the operations department and all the private contractors have done an amazing job cleaning up from the ice storm. So that is an achievement, and then some. Public meetings. Madam Clerk, so we'll go to the public meeting. This public meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of Section 7 of the Building Code Act, specifically Ontario Regulations 163/24, to hold at least one public meeting to inform the public and interested stakeholders of proposed changes to the building permit and services fees. The public meeting is a statutory requirement following Municipal Officer Report DS 2025-034 and Development Fees Review, Building and Planning Division, presentation provided by the Watsons Association Limited on March 12th, 2025, which include a review of the Development Fees and Charges Report for the Building and Planning Divisions. Please be advised that this meeting is being digitally recorded for the purpose of the creation of a public record. Only after the presentation by Watsons and Associates is received and comments are provided from the public will council make a decision at a future meeting of council on the proposed building division fees adjustment. Madam Clerk, confirmation of notice regarding the public meeting.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Notice for the public meeting was posted on March 28, 2025 on the township website, building web page and main page banner with a direct link to the notice. Additional notice was provided by way of social media posts and email correspondence to builders, developers, and contractors in the Oro-Medonte area. The April 23rd, 2025 council meeting agenda was publicly available on Thursday, April 17th, 2025.
Okay, and has there been any correspondence on this matter, Madam Clerk?
No, there is no recent correspondence.
Okay, thank you. I will now turn the meeting over to Sean Michael Stephen, Managing Partner of Watson's & Associate Economists Limited, who will provide a presentation via Zoom regarding the proposed building fee changes and will be available to answer questions resulting from presentation. Mr. Stephen? Is Mr. Stephen online, Madam Clerk?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, there you are, sir.
Okay, so I see the presentation is up. So thanks for having me here this afternoon. So on the next slide, just to recap the purpose of the review we were retained to undertake, it related not just to the building permit fees, but to the planning and engineering fees as well. And so in terms of making the ultimate fee recommendations to improve cost recovery levels, that was also done in the construct of the governing legislation, wanting to maximize that cost recovery level while minimizing the burden on the tax base, but having regard for some industry best practices around setting fees, as well as the affordability and competitiveness of the different fees as well. On the following slide, just to highlight the purpose of this meeting, which I think was already generally covered in the preamble, that it is required, the public meeting is required prior to introducing a change to the building permit fees. And so although the planning and building permit fee recommendations were previously presented to council, this meeting is meeting that requirement under the Act. So moving ahead, I'll just touch briefly on the legislative context to impose the fees. Firstly, on the next slide, with respect to the planning applications. They are imposed under Section 69 of the Planning Act. And the key here is that with the provisions that the fees can recover the anticipated cost of processing by type of application, is that we need to have regard for the cost and revenue levels by each type of application when setting fees, and not having the ability to cross-subsidize your levels of fee recovery between different types of planning applications, such as a minor variance and a subdivision application, for example. Conversely, with respect to the building permits that are imposed under Section 7 of the Building Code Act, the legislation sets that cost recovery level at an aggregate in terms of fees, the revenues from fees not exceeding the anticipated reasonable cost of administering and enforcing the Act. Another key component of the legislation is that it speaks to the creation of reserve funds and informs this forward-looking approach to setting fees when looking at the anticipated cost over a forecast period and not just the cost in any given year or for any individual permit. Then lastly, on the following slide, some of the engineering fees that were within the context of the review do not fall under the Planning Act of the Building Code Act, and so they would be recovered under the authority of Section 391 of the Municipal Act, which is your general fees and charges provision. So moving ahead to the study findings, on the following slide we have the annual cost of service. And so in aggregate across the planning building areas, about $3.2 million in annual cost of service have been calculated. That's based on the estimates of staff time on a per application per permit basis and the average annual permit and application volumes that the township has seen. About 71% of those costs are for the direct resource costs of the individuals involved in these processes, so the salary, wage, and benefit costs. About 8% are for the other direct costs of service within those departmental budgets. And then the remaining 21% roughly are for the indirect overhead and support and capital costs of service. So recognizing areas like HR and finance and IT that aren't directly included within those budgets, but are required to allow those direct service functions like the planning and building departments to function. On the following slide, then, we can see how those total costs break down by service area. So of the $3.2 million, about 1.6 related to processing of planning applications and engineering reviews, and about $1.5 million for building permit fees. When looking at how those costs are currently recovered from your current application and permit fees and average historical volumes, that would generate about $1.2 million, resulting in about 39% of those costs being recovered from fees. When we look at that cost recovery level between planning applications versus building permits, we can see that the majority of that revenue is coming from building permit fees, about $1 million out of the $1.25 million, which means the building permit fees are recovering about 64% of the costs, and the planning application fees are currently only recovering about 25% of those costs. So in aggregate, that $1.92 million annual shortfall in terms of the costs that are not recovered through those fees would be funded through other sources. And so that would be levy support with respect to the planning application fees and your building permit reserve funds with respect to the building permit fees, to the extent those reserve funds are available to fund that shortfall. If those reserve funds were exhausted, then that would also be a levy funding implication as well. So then, focusing on at a high level on the planning application fee recommendations, they're provided in detail in the report, but I'll just highlight a few of them here. There have been new minor and major fee distinctions for zoning bylaw amendments, official plan amendment, and minor variance applications. In terms of new fees that are imposed, I'll highlight that resubmission fees will be introduced, and that would be 25% of the full application fee. Highlight that for combined applications where you do have concurrent official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications, there are discounts in comparison to the standalone full application fees, recognizing the economies of scale in processing those applications concurrently. And as well, there's a new separate subdivision fee for engineering review and inspection coordination time provided by staff. Also related to subdivision, the fee structure has been augmented to align with how the costs are incurred within the municipality, and as well as municipal best practices, where the fee would now include a base application fee that's applicable to all applications, as well as a variable fee that's charged on a per unit or per square meter of non-residential floor area basis to recognize the incremental staff time and efforts as applications and developments increase in size. So in aggregate with the recommendations across all application types, that would see an increase in planning application fee revenue of almost $900,000, so increasing from 51% cost recovery levels up to 71%. And with that increase, seeing those annual revenues increasing from about $250,000 currently up to approximately $1.1 million. In terms of the building permit fee recommendations, so generally the fee structures have been maintained that are currently in place, although the fees themselves have been increased to move to full cost recovery levels. The approach to imposing to determining the recommendations for the building permit fees have been to recover the full cost of service, not just on an annual basis, but looking at how that cost of service and revenues would change over the 2025 to 2029 forecast period, recognizing that there's a desire not only to recover the cost of service, but also contribute to the Building Code Act stabilization reserve funds to ensure that there is that that reserve fund is in a sustainable position, so that the building permit review processes can be provided on a sustainable basis without having a tax levy funding implication. So just to expand on that on the following slide, in terms of the reserve fund strategy, currently the township doesn't have a formal strategy around the accumulation of building permit reserve funds. When we look at that across Ontario, for the most part, the target reserve fund balances range between 1 to 2 times annual total cost of service, with the rationale being that that reserve fund should have sufficient funds that if there was an economic downturn and a loss in building permit activity versus what was anticipated and what staff is capable of processing, that there needs to be that funding source to maintain that processing capacity, so that when those building permit volumes return and staff have to meet mandatory turnaround times, that staff capacity is there to provide that service, because you do operate in a tight labor market, and there would likely be service disruptions if you didn't have that staff capacity there in advance of those volumes returning. And so in terms of the fee recommendations that have been made, they would move the township towards the lower end of that municipal range in terms of the reserve fund targets of 1 to 2 times annual cost. I would see the township move from their current reserve fund position of being around 1/2 of a year's annual cost to about 89% of annual cost by the end of the forecast period. And the reason that the fee recommendation is designed to move towards that lower level but not fully achieve it over the 5-year period is that we want to be conscientious of the fact that this is a long-term, this is the reserve fund is a funding source for the long-term sustainability of these services. And therefore, there should be a longer-term responsibility to accumulate those reserves and not just overburden development in the next 5 years with meeting that long-term funding responsibility. So the next slide, this illustrates this visually in terms of the costs and revenues in the reserve fund position. And so in the orange parts of the bars, you can see the forecast annual revenues each year, which are a product of forecast building permit activity, as well as the recommended fees, which would increase at about 2.5% per year. And so we can see that in the orange bars, and then the blue bars are showing what the annual cost would be. So we see each year over the 5-year period, the revenues would exceed the cost, indicating that there would be contributions to reserves in each of those years. The dotted yellow line indicates where the target reserve fund balance would be at 1 times annual cost. And the green line indicates what the projected reserve fund balance would be under these cost and revenue relationships. So we can see that reserve fund balance indicated by the green line moving towards that 1 times multiple as we see those contributions to the reserve each year over that 5-year period. So the last thing to highlight then would be the fee survey that was undertaken with respect to the fee recommendations. When preparing both the building permit and planning application fee recommendations, those were undertaken in the context of the full cost of service as well as the competitiveness of those fees. And so when looking at the comparator municipalities, which were largely from Simcoe County, when looking at the building permits, the fee increases maintain the township's position, which is near the top end of the spectrum for the permit fees. For some of the minor permit fees, a little more competitively priced, as was shown in the council presentation. And on the planning fee side, the increase in the planning fees result in some of the major fees for the official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments being in the top half of the fees imposed, but on the minor fees for those application types being more competitively priced. And when looking at the planning or the planning engineering fees for subdivision, those would remain well within the comparator range. on the following slide, then, we haven't shown the survey materials for all the different planning, building, engineering fees, but we did just want to highlight for a residential subdivision development what the implications are of these fee recommendations for planning and building fees in the context of the overall development fees that are payable in the township and surrounding municipalities. And so this graph shows not just the building permit fees, which are in green, and the planning application fees, which are in light blue and gray, which are so insignificant here that you can't actually see them at the bottom of the bar, but as well the development charges, which are in the dark blue section. So just indicating that development charges are what drive the majority of the municipal development fees that are payable. And so with the fee recommendations that have been brought forward to council, the position of the township between that of Midland and Penetanguishene and Springwater and Essa would remain unchanged, with a fairly minor increase to the overall fees payable. So that does conclude the prepared remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions there are.
Thank you very much, council members. Any questions, comments regarding the presentation? No. Councillor Bard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Maybe this is more for Director Spagnol, and sorry I didn't reach out sooner, but how often are we seeing a resubmission? Like, is this like 25% for a resubmission fee? I feel like maybe if we, could that be higher to encourage people to get things more in order? I don't really know the process, but just my thinking is that if that's taking a lot of staff time, that might be something to offset some of the charges for somebody that does it right the first time.
Through your Mayor Greenlaw to Councillor Bard, the resubmission fees don't occur too often. It's really a matter where if there's a significant change in an application or there's additional information that wasn't picked up, and say, for example, a developer has to revise their plan to reflect significant changes, which results in a recirculation of the application of the agencies and whatnot, that's typically when a resubmission would occur. The thought from staff's perspective is that 25% is appropriate, given the fact that it doesn't happen that often, and there is a heavy emphasis on the need for pre-consultation as well within the application structure. So the thought is that the 25% is appropriate, given it does not happen that often, and that staff would have to rely on pre-consultation, the requirements for each application.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Just one thing for some clarity, Mr. Stephen. Are there municipalities that have full cost recovery in regards to their development fees?
Yes, there are. Thanks for the question. And it would depend on the fees you're looking at. I would say most municipalities that have done a building permit fee review would be at full cost recovery levels. With respect to planning application fees, most municipalities that have done this type of review would move to, or at least towards, full cost recovery levels for major planning application types, but they may have consideration for the affordability of fees for application types that are applied for by existing residents. So minor variance applications are quite commonly an area where municipalities don't fully recover those costs, but they often would be attempting to recover full costs of subdivision applications, for example.
Okay, so is this an abnormal gap just because we haven't done the review recently, that we have such a disparity between the application fees of cost recovery and the permit fees?
Your current level of cost recovery is not abnormal for municipalities that have not looked at this in some time.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Councillor Hutchison.
Sorry, thank you, through you, Mayor Greenlaw, and just to add on to that, can you just confirm, I believe we've had the conversation before that we haven't done a comprehensive review of this nature on these fees up until now? Am I correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Mayor Greenlaw, through you to Councillor Hutchison, that is correct. The township hasn't gone through a comprehensive fees review that I'm aware of. I know that there's been comparable analysis to surrounding municipalities and whatnot to adjust fees, but it hasn't been completed at this level of detail.
No. Supplemental?
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, because it was a great question to find out if you know how we compare to other municipalities and the gap that we have, because it does seem quite significant, and it's interesting to me. You know, when we're talking about ensuring that we don't have a shortfall where we're going to have to rely on reserves or even going back to the levy. So I'm very pleased to see that we've actually taken the effort to do such a comprehensive survey. I do know in the last term of council there was actually discussion around reducing development service charges. So I think the information we have in front of us here certainly warrants us to look at actually implementing more charges. So thank you.
No, thank you. No, I think it's the motto was development takes care of development, right? And then the levy takes care of the maintenance after. So, okay, if there's no other questions at this time, I will now ask the township staff to advise of those from the public that have registered to speak via Zoom or in person to this matter. We will hear from each person that has registered to speak. Madam Clerk, can you advise, has anyone registered?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to provide a verbal comments or questions with respect to the proposed building division fee adjustments? Seeing none, has there been any additional written comments received during the public meeting?
No, Mr. Mayor, there has not.
Are there any final comments or questions from council members to the presenter or staff? Mr. Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. I think I'd just like to advise council the next steps. So essentially what staff will be doing is preparing a final draft bylaw for council's consideration accompanied with a recommendation report. The idea of that would be to bring that report to council in the next couple of weeks with a bylaw to go and actually revise the fee schedule to implement the fees as presented in this public meeting and previous members of council, and as recommended within the update and review report that was completed by Watson and Associates. So council will be aware that that item will be on an agenda in May for implementation for the month of June.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Spagnell. Okay. Council wishes to thank all those for participation through either your submission or written comments or oral comments during the meeting, and will consider all matters in their decision. The draft bylaw is to be considered at a future council meeting. Okay, so now we are on to item 8, deputations presentations, which we have none. 9, is there anyone that would like an item moved forward? Yeah. Yes, Mr. Smith.
Yes, I'd like 15A.
Okay, thank you. And any others? There's also, Madam Clerk, there's been a request to move 12A forward after, as I know Mr. Van Voncoeur has a meeting at 4. So we'll do 15A and then 12A after open forum. Is there anyone registered to speak in open forum, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor, there is not.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today? Seeing none, then we will move forward to item 15A. May we have a motion for this item, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that the correspondence dated April 7th, 2025, from Murray Smith, parking concerns related to the new ball hockey rinks, be received and referred to staff for a report.
Okay. Is there any comments or questions regarding this? The only amendment in it is that the spaces, parking spaces, is 40, not 20. So that was the only change. But if there's no questions or comments, then I'll call Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yes, thank you very much. Was when did this matter come up with regard to the ball hockey rinks and their approval in the first instance?
Mayor Greenlaw, through to Deputy Mayor Lavoie. The matter was brought up through a site plan approval, and I would say through activity that was being conducted on the site related to the site plan approval for the ball hockey facility. That's the root of the letter that's been submitted, and there have been ongoing discussions amongst staff with various residents who have raised some concerns with respect to with the facility, which were considered through a number of discussions with the developer. But the root of the letter is really from the fact that there's been activity on the site for the use, which is obtained site plan approval.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Bard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just want to thank Mr. Smith for taking the time to engage in this forum and look out for his neighbors and the well-being and being here to represent them. So thank you. It's well written and very clear. Thank you.
Okay. There's no other questions or comments. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that is approved, Madam Clerk. And now if we can go to item 12A. Mr. Van Boncourt, this is regards to the Oro Station Automotive Innovation Park. Now, it's a fairly lengthy report, and it's for the subdivision agreement to be reinstated. So I guess Mr. Van Boncourt felt that the presentation is very detailed and laid out. So rather than a presentation, he's just going to make himself available to ask questions in regards to the report. So I'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor Young.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't know how the rest of council feels, but about taking a tour of the site. We took a tour of the tricycling place in London there, and that was a much smaller incident or proposal, and this is a much larger proposal. I don't know how the representatives feel about taking council, or the rest of council feels about that, but I've driven by the place for 4 years now. I haven't seen much in the way of actual construction, brick and mortar type thing. And I just noticed going by there today, as indicated in the previous meeting, that there's a structure going up at the north end, I guess what you term to be a barn. I see the walls are up anyways. But other than that, perhaps I can ask the rest of council how they feel about taking a tour of the property to see. It's difficult. I've seen the drawings and that sort of thing, but I know there's further construction going at the north and the far east end there. You've had a lot of heavy equipment in there and doing things there, but other than seeing piles of dirt for the last 4 years, I haven't seen much in the way of structures going up. So I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I certainly would like to take a tour of the property and see what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, no, and I don't disagree, and I think, you know, I know Mr. Campbell would like to be very welcoming to allow you on the site. You'd have to get your work boots out there, Councillor, for safety reasons. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe I can borrow yours, but I don't know how the rest of council feels about that.
Yes, but I think what's before us today is the approval of what's been submitted in the report of Mr. Van de Boncourt. So I think we can accommodate your request outside of that, but I think what's before us right now is what I would like to keep the discussion to. That's okay.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't know how Mr. Campbell feels about that. Is there any feedback from you?
Sure. Please, just approach and for formalities,
Hello, Council. Jeffrey Campbell from Oro Station. Yes, Councillor Young, we're happy to take you out for a tour there on site. And I think we've got the appropriate vehicles that can handle the mud that's out there. So we might have to limit it to 4 at a time to get in that truck and get out there. But happy to take you around so you have more context of the scope and scale of the project and understand the orientation of it all.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the invite. I'm sure you'll be taken up on it. I just want to mention that with regard to the County of Simcoe, I also did make mention as a member of the airport board, whatever implications that might have with regard to their application to move from an aerodrome to an airport. I'm sure you're aware of it, and I just wanted to be aware of it as myself as well.
We are, yeah. So we've worked closely with the airport in terms of the future requirements and what we're building to accommodate their growth. So we are proud to be good neighbors with that airport, work closely with the management staff there, and we have liaised with them in ensuring that their needs will be met through our development.
Any other questions? No? I don't. You all have your yellow cards in hand. I just don't know. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to council. I just think, I want to thank Mr. Campbell for being here. I think, hopefully 10, 15 years down the road, we're going to look back and think about how great this is we have in our community to be, a centrally located innovation hub. So just commenting my support for the overall direction.
Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion for this?
Mr. Mayor, this was for information only, with some direction, but the motion will come forward after my presentation on the strong mayor's powers.
Perfect. No. I want to thank Mr. Campbell and Brad for coming, Mr. Rogers for coming here today to answer questions, and appreciate and wish you all the best as we move forward with this project and to its completion. So, okay.
Terrific.
And hopefully you get weather that cooperates with with your construction and the ice storms are behind us.
Yeah, this winter was quite an interesting one, but from the look of the sun out there, we'll be back into full swing shortly.
No, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so now do we want to, that takes 12, and we'll go back now to Madam Clerk, may we have a motion for item 11A?
Moved by Lavoie, second by Bard. Be it resolved that CS 2025-07, Jennifer Whitley, Economic Development Officer, Business Retention, Expansion and Attraction, BREA, Project Final Action Plan be received and adopted. That staff develop the Economic Development Annual Work Plan and report back to Council.
Okay, so Ms. Whitley's made herself available for questions. We've had the BREA presentation before us, and some of us have seen it multiple times. Very well done. Is there any questions or comments at this point by any members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Whitley, and I know you've got a lot of work before you now as we put a strategy together how we move forward. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. That is passed. And may we have a motion for 11B, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, this is with respect to the ward boundary, so I'm not sure if council would like to have some discussion.
Yep, no, absolutely.
At this time?
If you want, then we'll open the floor then at first for discussion, and then we'll come back from the discussion with the motion that we'll adapt. Okay, so this is regarding the ward boundary where we're currently at 6, and the deputy mayor position is kind of a combined position between deputy mayor and ward councillor. And we were looking to go back to making the deputy mayor position a standalone position on council. And the options would be either to increase by 2 in order that we don't get caught in an even number, or we cut back by 1. So I think with the population where it's at and where it's forecasted at, I think everyone would be, personally, I think everyone could absorb the growth over the next 5 years and still well service the community. Is there any other comments at this time? Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. I've looked back at the original study that was done for this. I believe, I can't quote what year it was done, but it was done during the last term of council, 2021. And there are a number of viable options that have been laid out on that particular study. I would be in support of moving back to a 5-ward system with a mayor and a deputy mayor. I experienced sort of firsthand exactly the workload that the deputy mayor has in trying to balance both the ward boundaries and the duties of being the deputy mayor. And yeah, I think there's some ability to relook at how we have things laid out right now as far as ward boundaries go. There's a lot of development going to be happening in the Craighurst area. More so than I think we had anticipated, just given the presentation we had recently from Georgian International. So I do think it's worth looking at while we're still in this term of council. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we have to be very conscientious of is there's a time frame between public meetings and where we get to the conclusion. So rather than re-engage an entire new study from a consultant, what I would think is we just have the consultants come back and validate that the numbers are still consistent from 4 years ago, and if there is any minor tweaking, where it would be. So I think it would save us spending a full, I believe the cost was last term $40,000, and as long as we stay to the standardized proposals in that report, it keeps us at our arm's length as well and protects us from appeals. Councillor Hutchison.
And just a supplemental as well, I think there has been some criticism around just the appointment of the deputy mayor versus an actual, voted in position by the community. And I think there's merit to people actually feeling like they've had a say in who the deputy mayor is versus that person being appointed.
No, thank you. Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I'm a very strong proponent in going back to a singular position for deputy mayor. It may simply have been the experience or lack of experience coming into the position, but it may also be the fact that there has been a complete overhaul of the municipal-provincial relationship. The legislation has changed in its entirety. The planning legislation has changed, the relationships have changed, and naturally we have new instruments such as strong mayor powers that we will be talking about. Independent of what happens at county council, I think, irrespective of that, I think it's not fair for the constituents of the ward for whom the deputy mayor also comes from. I can say in all honesty and in all effort that, I easily put in 5 to 6 days a week with different concerns, whether they be those of the township, the ward, or the county. And those efforts are not meant to be the efforts of someone who's supposed to have a part-time job. So either we acknowledge that these positions are not part-time, if they're not, or we undertake to provide a fair and balanced level of effort versus responsibility for those positions if we're to have a reasonably designed system of governance. So I would be very much in favor of moving today to instruct staff to come back with some kind of a report based on how we would move to 5 wards. We certainly wouldn't want to increase or stay at the same number, nor would we want to increase the size of council. I don't think that's necessary. Those are my comments on the matter, and I'm very much in support of a return to 5 councillors, 1 deputy mayor, and 1 mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to my colleagues on council. I think I agree with Councillor Hutchison and Deputy Mayor's comments. From my perspective, there should be, the Deputy Mayor role can serve as a check, in my opinion, and I think it's important to have the electorate have the ability to directly vote for who that individual is. Whether the mayor and the deputy mayor in some future election are aligned or they are opposed, I think it should be up to the residents and the constituents to have that voice in terms of who is going to represent them at either the mayoral level or the deputy mayoral level. To the other comments in regards of the council composition in terms of number, my main priority is making sure we have a direct vote for the deputy mayor. If we lose a member of council or we gain 2 more members of council, I think the most important thing from my perspective at this current moment is making sure we have a direct vote for deputy mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Young.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I guess the other thing too is the cost savings to the taxpayer if we were to create 2 more positions. So perhaps that can be noted in the report itself, the cost of 2 additional councillors in comparison to retaining what we have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, and maybe sort of an open question, not just solely relying on a past report. Would we have some GIS within staff, some people trained that would be able to maybe offer another option that they might see based on some population studies of different, using the mapping software that we have?
Through to Councillor Bard, you'll recall the recent development charges study update. We do have more recent population projections. That would be our suggestion, is to look at the sources that are available, to just go back and validate the assumptions that were originally presented in 2021 and come back to council with considerations in terms of what that may look like for scope of a review and the timelines, as the mayor alluded to. There are deadlines that we need to adhere to, so depending the scope, that's going to impact the timeline as well as the cost for a potential reassessment or re-review.
Thank you very much. Supplemental?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Binns. I was just wondering if we had somebody in-house that could maybe do some legwork on this before we look in this in too much detail.
And that's exactly, I think, what would be proposed, is that we have that information, so we would forward the information to the original consultants and just have them review. I think it is important that it is a third party that conducted the fulsome review, so just to go back and validate the assumptions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you to the floor. I think the people of Oro-Medonte would love to have the opportunity to vote for their deputy mayor, and I agree with that. As far as the number of wards, I think the addition of Ward 6 was a benefit to the people up in Medonte. Coming from that area myself for 25 years, there's been 2 separate communities, as we know, amalgamated in 1994. And the crying of the people of Moonstone area, feeling that they're being left out and neglected, I think, and it's growing as well. It's growing immensely. I think I'd like to see it stay with 6.
Okay. No. Thank you. And that's important that we get everyone's comment. I think the challenge is to stay with 6 wards, and we making the deputy mayor a separate position. Now we're at an even number, and so that's the one catch. I think, you know, there are some options that were in the report last term that gave that breaking out of the old Medonte section that was concentrated on, and I believe the one option was to split the waterfront communities into 2 wards instead of divide them over 3. But there's multiple options in the report that we can look at. I believe there were 2 options that remained at 5 wards. From my recollection, there was 1 to go to 6. So, but I think that's something that will come back and we can discuss in the future at the follow-up meeting. So, okay, is that good discussion, good input, and like I said, there's no simple solution to things like this. So, Madam Clerk, like, I know there was an alternate resolution that staff be directed to report back on May 14th on the cost and timelines associated with updating the population forecast for the ward boundary options as presented to Council on July 20th, 2021 by Warden Watson and Associate Economists Limited. Is that what the motion is going to be moving forward, or did you want to read it? You read it much better than me. Sorry, didn't mean to read your.
No, that's perfectly okay. And just for clarity, the last ward boundary and council composition review was 60,000.
Okay, so it was.
Just for clarity to the public who are listening.
And I guess, Madam Clerk, just so the people at home understand the importance of the timelines of this because of the process and the public meeting components and public engagement components that that the decision needs to be made and moving forward in May, like, because we are on a kind of a scheduled timeline. As I believe it's December 31st, we have to have in place what the next term is going to encompass because of the election year, correct?
That's correct. It may not necessarily be May, but yes, we are on a tight timeline with respect to public consultation, etc. So that's why the report would be best brought back for May 14th.
Okay, thank you. Just trying to work with you, but would you like to read the motion and then I'll call the vote rather than people listen to my broken verbiage?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that CS 2025-06, Yvonne Aubuchon, Clerk, Council Composition and Ward Boundary Review follow-up be received. That staff be directed to report back at the May 14th, 2025 Council meeting on the cost and timelines associated with updating the population forecasts for the ward boundary options as presented to Council on July 20th, 2021 by Watson and Associates Economists Limited.
Okay, everyone's heard the vote. I'll call it. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. And now we're on to item 12B. Madam Clerk, maybe you can proceed. This is regarding the strong mayor powers, and I believe the clerk has a presentation she wants to make. So when you're ready, please continue.
So the strong mayor's powers, the discussion of the day. Next slide. So Bill 3, Strong Mayors Building Homes Act 2022, was passed by the Ontario government on September the 8th, 2022, and it is referred to now as the Strong Mayors Act. This added Part 6.1, Special Powers and Duties of the Head of Council, to the Municipal Act. And those details are outlined in OREG 530-22. That came into effect on November 2022. November 23rd, 2022. Shortly after that, Bill 39, Better Municipal Governance Act 2022, followed, which amended Part 6.1 of the Municipal Act and that came into effect on December 8, 2022, and detailed in OREG 580, 2022. It was prescribed provincial priorities, constructing and maintaining infrastructure to support more residential housing. So that was the primary function of that Bill 39. Next slide. So the initial intent of the legislation was introduced by the province to accelerate the delivery of provincial municipal priorities, particularly around housing development. Next slide. The introduction of strong powers, as I said, it was passed in September 8, 2022, and was granted to the City of Toronto and the City of Ottawa mayors only. On June 6th, 2023, it was granted to 45 other municipalities across the province for a total of 47 municipalities. And on April the 9th this year, it was expanded to an additional 169 single-tier and lower-tier municipalities with a council size of 6 or more members, and it was to come into effect on May the 1st, 2025. Part 6.1 of the Municipal Act does not allow the municipalities to opt out of the strong mayor powers, but it is at the discretion of each mayor as to how they would like to use those powers. Next slide, please. So there are key priorities. First, we'll address the administrative powers. Direction to staff. So the mayor would have the ability to direct municipal employees on matters related to provincial priorities. The CAO appointments, so the mayor has the power to appoint and dismiss the chief administrative officer. Organizational structure, under strong mayor's powers, could determine the organizational structure of the municipality, power to hire, dismiss, or exercise any other prescribed employment powers, including other non-statutory department heads. And there are exceptions to that we'll get into later in slides. And local boards and committee appointments, power to establish and dissolve committees, power to appoint chairs and vice chairs of committees, both local board and committees, and to assign functions to committees. The legislative powers allows the mayor to veto power. The mayor can veto certain council decisions, bylaws, if they impede provincial priorities, particularly housing. The mayor can also propose bylaws related to provincial priorities and require council to consider them. This applies to bylaws pertaining to the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, and Section 2 of the Development Charges Act. Budgeting powers are also provided, and the mayor can propose the municipal budget prior to February 1st, and though council can amend that. The mayor also has a veto power over council's budget amendments, and we'll get into that a little further. Then there's the provincial priorities, which we've already touched on. Strong mayor's powers can primarily be used to advance prescribed provincial priorities, and that's outlined, as I said, in OREG 580-22. The most prominent initial priority is increasing the supply of housing. This includes facilitating the approval of new residential developments and also encompasses infrastructure that supports housing, such as roads, transit, utilities, and servicing. Next slide, please. So it's a strong designation, but powers are not absolute. Council can override. Council override allows council to override a mayoral vote with a 2/3 majority vote. Budget amendments, while the mayor can propose the budget, council has the power to make amendments. And again, we'll get into that a little later. Accountability and transparency. Municipalities with strong mayor's powers are expected to maintain public transparency regarding the use of these powers. For example, they must have web pages and reporting of mayoral decisions that are made. Next slide, please. So now we're going to get into more detail of what exactly those powers entail and the checks and balances with respect to that. So the direction to staff. Under section 284.3, direction to staff allows the mayor to undertake, direct staff to undertake research, provide advice to mayor and council on municipal policies and programs, carry out duties related to mayoral decisions related to the powers under the Act. And the checks and balances, written record of direction must be provided to the clerk and CAO by the following business day. Direction must be circulated to all council, and direction to staff that is not confidential must be posted on the municipal website. Next slide, please. Chief Administrative Officer, found under section 284.5. The mayor may appoint a CAO, and of course with that, I guess could dismiss as well, although the Act doesn't really speak to that. So. And assign duties to the CAO. This power may be delegated to council. Next slide, please. Organizational structure. Found under section 284.6, can determine the municipal structure, organizational structure, hire or dismiss the head of any division or the head of any other part of the organizational structure, with the exception of the following officials, which must be appointed by council: clerk or deputy clerk, treasurer or deputy treasurer, integrity commissioner, ombudsman, auditor general, registrar, chief building official, chief of police, fire chief, medical officer of health, other officers or heads of divisions required to be appointed under this or any other act, and any other prescribed positions. Determining the organizational structure and hiring dismissal of division heads or head of any other organizational structure may be delegated to council or the CAO. Delegation of these items may be done on a situational basis, and all delegations of these powers are required to be completed in writing and posted on the municipal website. Next slide. So local boards and committees found under section 284.7 and 284.8. The mayor can appoint chairs and vice chairs to local boards, establish or dismiss or dissolve a committee, appoint chairs and vice chairs of committees, and assign functions to the committees. These powers may be delegated to council. Delegation must be in writing and posted on the municipal website. And OREG 530/2022 states that these powers only apply to committee whose numbers are solely members of council. And I believe at this time we only have one. So, next slide, please. Veto powers. Section 284(11) applies to the mayor, applies to bylaws associated with the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, or Section 2 of the Development Charges Act. The mayor can veto if he's of the opinion that the bylaw interferes with provincial priorities, or propose certain bylaws that would advance provincial priorities. These powers cannot be delegated. Veto does not allow the mayor to introduce amendments or new bylaws. It may only nullify council decision. Written veto document must be provided to the clerk with reasons for veto. Clerk must provide written veto document to council and make it available to public next business day. Copy of veto decisions must be posted on municipal website. Council will have 21 days to possibly override the head of council vetoes with a 2/3 council vote. Bylaws proposed by head of council can be enacted by a vote of 1/3 plus one member of a municipal council. Next slide, please. And now for the budget. These strong mayor powers are found under section 284(16). The mayor can prepare and propose a budget to council for consideration before February 1st. Veto amendments to budget may be made by council within 10 days after the period for the council to pass amendments, and the mayor may shorten the 10-day veto period. These powers cannot be delegated. Power to prepare and present budget reverts to council if mayor fails to present by February 1st. Council has 30 days to amend the budget after presented. If no amendments, the mayor's proposed budget is adopted. And council may vote to shorten this period. Council may override the mayor's veto with 2/3 of the council voting to override the veto. Next slide, please. So the timelines for this expansion to 169 municipalities. A release was made through the Ontario Regulatory Registry on April the 9th, 2025, advising of the addition of the 169 municipalities who were being granted strong mayor powers, and it was to come into force and effect on May 1st, 2025. Correspondence from the Honourable Rob Flack, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, was received also on April 9th, 2025, and that correspondence is item 12B on the agenda. Responses to the release of April 9th, 2025 were required back to the ministry by April 16th, 2025. So as you can see, a very short turnaround for everyone to wrap their heads around this. Next slide, please. So regardless of whether mayors use these powers, the framework such as bylaws, policies, practices, and procedures must be reviewed and in place to facilitate these changes. So as an example, we would need forms that the mayor would submit to the clerk and to be uploaded. There's various numbers of items. So again, policies, the framework needs to be done. So there's a lot of background work to be done. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MMAH staff, are anticipating training sessions to be scheduled in the near future. And further to the MMAA training and review of best practices from other municipalities who are currently operating under this legislation, staff will report back with more information and any changes that may be required. Next slide, please. So recommendations are that the presentation by yours truly with respect to strong mayor's powers be received for information only, and that staff report back with additional information and for necessary direction. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I guess what I'm, for clarity, I know it's for information only, but it is an important matter to be dealing in, and we can have discussion around the horseshoe in regards to this matter at this time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll open the floor at this time for any comments, questions. Does anyone want to go before the Deputy Mayor? No? Okay, then Deputy Mayor Lavoie, please.
Thank you very much. And to yours truly, if I might ask, will there be changes required to the procedural bylaw arising from this document? It seems like there's quite a bit involved.
Yes, potentially there may be. And again, staff hasn't even had the opportunity with other pending priorities to have a look at the details with respect to that. Yep. But we will be reporting back on that for sure.
Supplemental. Actually, if you have a slew of questions. Just proceed.
No. I think I have just one more comment, and it did arise as a result of the weighted vote at County Council, which is that with strong mayor powers and a 1/3 plus one majority vote, the vote is no longer in line with quorum. And there is within the code of conduct, there is a requirement, or perhaps it's legislated, I'm not sure, but there is a obligation that members of council cannot accumulate in a quorum for the purpose of doing business outside of chambers. However, now that the quorum and the number of parties necessary to make a decision are not the same, in fact, 3 people could meet out of this council and make a number of decisions, not in chambers, and then bring them to chambers and execute them. I'm wondering what defenses have been put in place to contemplate such possible outcomes. No need to answer today.
Thank you, Dip. Through Mr. Mayor to you. We must remember that these are primarily provincial priorities with respect to housing, and to stay within those boundaries. But to your point, that is exactly what we'll be looking at procedurally. I'm sure MMAH will be advising us, and we do have a session this Friday with AMCTO to further discuss the implications, the impacts, the positive side of this, and yeah, going forward, we'll have a lot of information to share, hopefully, in the near future.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Hutchison, please.
Great, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you. I guess, given that outline that it's for primarily housing, it's still, to me, very nebulous as to what that could or could not be, and what guardrails are in place to ensure someone's not going outside of those guidelines, and if they do, then what are the how is that then dealt with? For me, I'm just finding it, there's just not enough clarity around what a strong mayor can and cannot do, given the way it's described.
No, and go ahead, Madam Clerk, if you want to come. I guess the concern is, Councillor Hutchinson, and I agree. So they say it's predominantly focused on housing, but also within the articulation, they say in the best interest of the province. So it doesn't attach those two. It's in the best interest of the province, or is it specifically pertaining to housing? Because there has been, and there's also confusion as to, from my understanding or comprehension of governance of council, we have one employee, and that is CAO Binns. And now to give the power to 2 members of council and the mayor to remove somebody else's employees, to me is not consistent. I would say is what I would say. I think my comments are, we have a very respectful and open-minded council. So do I see a significant advantage to this being implemented in Oro-Medonte? At this time, from the information we have, no. We also have a very strong staff and a great team atmosphere in this township. And we as a council are very much in support of building more homes to help the province hit its mandate, and which I'm confident we can provide within our current policies, practices, procedures, and processes. Now, understanding that these are coming, it's not about whether we want to receive them or not. They're being implemented. It is hopefully potentially a tool in the toolbox that may be of some advantage down the road, but we've put our questions in to the ministers to get clarity, and once we have that clarity, then we'll have a better understanding. And because I think we are very much in support of being a democratic council that was elected by residents of this township to be their voice. And by no means do I think this council wants to use it in any way, shape, or form towards draconianism. So that's how I feel about it, and I think we all are on the same page. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but we'll leave it at that. And Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to my colleagues around the table. I actually, notwithstanding the deputy and Councillor Hutchinson's rightfully aforementioned ambiguities within the legislation, I actually believe that there is an appetite and a well-deserved opportunity for democracy in Ontario as a whole, not specific to this council, but to have some sort of direct relationship with the person that you're voting for, in this case the mayor, being able to more effectively, maybe that's not the right choice of words, but more effectively actively administer the public good that is being sought by the residents of Ontario. Those comments are not necessarily related directly to here in Oro-Medonte, but as a whole, I think it's important that individuals who are elected are accountable for being elected and to their constituents, and this potentially gives a mayor in some unknown jurisdiction the ability to carry out in the name of public good, I think. And at the end of the day, they will be held accountable in a 4-year period, every 4 years. So there is, in my opinion, some benefit to the legislation as a whole. Obviously, there's a lot of ambiguity into how this could, potentially change in the future, because as we all know, provincial priorities change. What if the provincial priority becomes healthcare? What does that mean? And how does a strong mayor use those powers to support the healthcare system, for example? So those are my comments, and I appreciate yours.
No, thank you very much. Councillor Young?
Yeah, just briefly, the way I see this, as the provincial government has indicated a number of times, it's a matter of cutting red tape. And you can see that throughout this, although they do extend a lot of powers to mayors, but I think that's the whole thrust of this, is to cut the red tape, as they've indicated a number of times, and this is doing it.
Deputy Mayor Lavoie?
Yeah, and this is particular, I think, for our circumstances. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to yours truly, the Madam Clerk. Insofar as you can, and when you have the opportunity, could you sort of engage the inquiry into how this interacts with Tier 1, Tier 2 sorts of authorities? Because while strong mayor has been given certain planning authorities, or bylaw authorities at least, how does that impact what the planning department might do at the county level? And is there any kind of intersection there? Because certainly there's no strong warden, so there's no opposition in the context of how we're governed at the upper level. So anyway, just more for the inquiry table.
Yeah, thank you for throwing another log on the fire.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the deputy. I will bring that forth on Friday. Thank you. Very good point. And further to your point, Mr. Mayor, there are other sections of the Act that have not yet been released that have the opportunity as well to be passed by Lieutenant Governor and by the province.
And I think
so stay tuned.
That's the important thing. I think there's more clarity that the whole story needs to be kind of put out there before we take a stance, and we understand and we think we're trying to do the best we can, and there may be some great advantages here that as a whole of council, we may not be implementing strong mayor powers because there's no need, because all of council's aligned and agrees to the direction we're going quickly. Yep. Councillor Schell?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Just a comment. With all due respect for our Premier's decision to make this happen, I think it's throwing a little bit of a blanket of confusion on the public about democracy.
No, good point. No, it's like I said, and part of that, I think, Councillor Schell is simply the fact it's the unknown. And we always fear the unknown, and our imagines make it a much more negative result than it actually turns out to be. So I don't think the province's intent was to move away from democracy. I think they're just trying to find ways to avoid red tape and find better efficiencies. Okay, so Madam Clerk, you've read the motion to receive this yet or no?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, this is combined with 12A and B, so I'll read that motion now.
Okay.
Moved by-
And just I apologize, don't mean to interrupt. Did CAO Binns have anything he wanted to say?
To yours truly.
Well, you can say it. You can say it to the clerk, or you know.
I don't have anything to add,
Okay.
Your Worship. I think the presentation's clear. There's lots of questions that I think the answers will be forthcoming. And as Ms. Aubuchon did outline, we will require direction from council. The presentation did outline some options in terms of delegated power and delegated authority, and that's exactly the kind of direction we'll be looking at for council once you have all of the information before you to provide that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Binns, and thank you very much, Madam Clerk, for a very concise and detailed report that kind of encompasses everything that we have to date. And then I look forward to when it comes back in May. Okay.
Thank you. Moved by Bard, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the reports as listed under item number 12, reports of municipal officers for information only, be received, and that staff proceed as outlined in the recommendations.
Okay. Call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so we're now at reports and announcements of members of council. Are there any updates from members of council as township representatives or with the partners or agencies? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hutchison.
We have one coming up soon, so we'll report out after that. Sorry, yes, just a quick update. As a member of the Municipal Climate Leadership Committee, we had a meeting this week, and just a very short update that the SSEA will be coming in front of council sometime within the next month to present a risk study funding opportunity that they're going to be looking for through something called the Green Municipal Fund. So they'll have more information on that. And just one little shout out for some community members in Ward 1, just directly after the ice storm event, a company that operates out of our community called Cadjo Catering very kindly set up a pop-up in the Fourth Line Park, and thank you to park staff who actually helped to prepare the park so that they could do this. And they offered free nachos and tacos and drinks to people in the community just out of the goodness of their hearts. So it was just a really very kind gesture at a time when folks needed a little uplift. So thank you, Cadjo Catering.
Yeah, no, that shows just one of many great people in this township and how we come together in times like this. So, Councillor Bard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just an update from the Oro-Medonte Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. We're very pleased to welcome Jessica Knowles as our new executive director. She started last week, and we had our first meeting the other night, and she's very excited and brings a wealth of experience with her. So looking forward to that. And from the Aurelia Public Library, I just want to remind residents of Oro-Medonte to check it out at some point. There's a lot of, it's a great facility, great building, great community hub, lots of programming, and some of the more recent successful programs they've had is their mini kindies, early literacy preschool program to prepare kindergartens before they go to school. They've also partnered with the OSPCA, and they provided this intergenerational programming for like pet first aid and all people that are interested in pets. So it gets the community together. And one that had a curious title for me was What the Heck is AI? And it was like an educational program specifically for adults to try to figure out what's going on in the world and keep up. So there's a wealth of programming at the Aurelia Public Library, and I encourage residents to check it out and get involved and learn some stuff.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bard. Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yes, thank you very much. Just a couple of things. I do want to, first of all, thank every neighbor who went out to help out every other neighbor in the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks. We're still digging ourselves out, and I'd like to say to the public, please be patient with both the county and the township. We are doing our best. There are contractors working on different aspects and different responsibilities, and sometimes they're not easy to recognize, but the county is responsible for taking away the solid waste management component, and the municipality itself, the township, is responsible for cleaning up its roads and public ways, parks, etc. So that work is ongoing, and it'll be ongoing for some time, and we are keeping a ledger of the work in great detail, thanks to our CAO and finance department who've assigned resources to ensure that for whatever we can recover, and it's a one-time recovery only, we can only submit one invoice or one appeal, that we get as much as we possibly can, because this is going to be ongoing for some time and it's going to be very expensive. So once again, thanks to the neighbors helping neighbors. That's excellent. I just want to give a slight update on the NVCA/LSRCA proposed amalgamation that was triggered by this municipality. We will be meeting in the near future. There is a hold in our calendars for May 6th, so that's quite soon, to discuss with the chairs and co-chairs, vice chairs, of the two conservation authorities and their CAOs, myself and Councillor Clark as the seconding member of the motion, to discuss the steps moving forward. The NVCA in particular has been quite active in terms of their petitioning other municipalities with regards to their opposition to this amalgamation. We will, they have in fact asked for a report. We will be asking for them for information for both conservation authorities to assist in preparing that report. The meeting was scheduled earlier. It was canceled on behalf of the NVCA because they had a conflict. And then, of course, it was next scheduled during our ice storm, which unfortunately we as the municipality had to cancel for other reasons. So there should be something coming up on that in the near future, and then it will be delayed slightly getting that information to County Council. Accordingly, I initially promised in April, it may be in May or June. There is no, by the way, it's important to stress that there is no procedural requirement for this to take place over any particular period of time. So to that extent, we're not under a statute of limitations or any other obligation for that amalgamation. And in very large news, the County Council has decided to go where no one has gone before, and will be sending out to the member municipalities a motion to vote on whether they will approve the reduction to County Council to mayors only and 17 members of County Council, with the warden being picked from eligible electors, and that means anybody who is an eligible elector within the Simcoe County or a landowner. And you'll go to each of the 16 municipalities. So 9 municipalities themselves, which is the third component of the triple majority, would have to approve that motion to move to a 17 or 16 plus 1 county council size. So that will be coming up to this council soon. The objective is to have that executed and back to county council by June 30th so that they can undertake the necessary steps to get that implemented by the end of the year so that it can be in place for the next election in 2026. So look forward to that. We'll be looking forward to your public comments on that matter, and there will be submissions taken by each of the member municipalities with regard to the constitution of that county council. So that's all I have. Thank you.
That's good. You took about 70% of what I had to say, so that saved me time. Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Through you to the public, because I know we all received this notice today from Nottawasaga Valley Conservation and Napoleon, but to the public, this Sunday coming, April 27th, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., they're doing a tree planting with Napoleon at site 2621 Gore Road. That's next to the Napoleon facility, followed by a barbecue. And they're looking for as many volunteers as they can get out there. They will be planting with the Napoleon families out there, and I think this is phase 2. The first one was in the fall. They're planting around 300 native trees and shrubs and seedlings to protect that waterway. So come on out and have fun, and a nice barbecue with Napoleon.
Thank you very much, Councillor Schell. Yes, I know I'm going. So any other councillors that want to go, and staff, you're all welcome. Hopefully it's a beautiful day. So, Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Just to tag on to your comments, Deputy Mayor, with regard to county composition, because this is such a big item. I believe I spoke at last council. I actually attended the meeting on March the 25th, where there was the debate on the floor at county with regard to the composition. And I would highly recommend that our council members and anybody in the public who's interested in this to perhaps review the YouTube of that meeting, because there was very good debate about this and some solid reasoning on both sides of that position, whether to increase, whether to decrease it or not. So, I think just taking that time to educate yourself on all of the different sides of it would be really important for us as a council to come to a decision.
Yes, no, and I think, and I'm staying, it's fairly neutral. Like there seemed to be a long list of advantages to staying to the 32 members of county, and the other side had, other than it was going to save $1.50 to the taxpayer, was the different, like the offset. So they didn't really come forward with it. It didn't appear that I heard any substantive other than that one economic component. But like an insurance policy, you want to make sure you have solid representation in order worrying about saving $1.50. So, but I think if everybody does, because I think it's important, because we will decide as a council as what vote goes back. It won't be the deputy and I taking a position that we feel. The vote will come from all of this council. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, and it'll be interesting to see if any of the mayors use strong mayor powers in regard to their instructions on that matter.
I will not. So, anyways, I just, is there any other comments this time? Then I'll touch, first of all, I want to touch on the fact that the community hall naming, Submissions are open till the 27th of April. Now, this is for the community hall component, not the school. The school component is being decided, and the names have been submitted to the school board, and the school board is in control of that. So I just want everyone to please, participate in this. It's important, and that everyone has input before we name the hall. So, and then I just want to give a brief update on our recovery from the ice storm. So crews worked extensively hard, and I was throughout the township, and the number of crews that worked over the Easter weekend was very impressive. And I really do commend our staff and the contractors that are still out there, getting us back to a normality in a much faster time period than I thought possible, because the damage is very extensive. But so we did lift the state of emergency on Tuesday, and we continue to clear the roadways and overhanging branches on the 700 kilometers of municipal roads that we have. We know it's been very extremely challenging time, and understandably everyone wants to get their properties cleared of brush and debris. Your patience and understanding are appreciated. The County of Simcoe is responsible for yard waste, and detailed information on yard waste is available on the township and county website. So I know we're getting a number of calls that they were here, they didn't pick us up, but they picked up over the other side of the street. There's different crews working with different levels of governance, and we will get to everybody as quickly as possible, and we're trying to make sure we have clarity as to which we'll update in May as to when the free dump landfill site fees will be waived till, and where we are as far as cleanup in regards to the yard waste, because that is very pertinent. Unfortunately, we do not send our staff into private property in order to clear trees. It's a liability component, and we only have so many staff. Parks and trails are starting to reopen, but everyone is reminded to be mindful while enjoying these spaces due to some debris which remains in place. Once again, thank you for the numerous individual, business, community groups, and partners that stepped up from the onset of the storm to help. It is these selfless acts of kindness that make our community so special. And thank you to all residents, businesses, for your willingness to help each other with patience, compassion, and resilience. And finally, I want to thank our media partners who work diligently to keep the key information to the Ontario community, to the Oro-Medonte community and beyond. Unfortunately, early on, nobody had power, so you didn't see the extensive radio and TV coverage that we were provided, but as we came out of it, they have been very supportive. That will hopefully put us in a better spot as we will be applying for government assistance from the municipality perspective for all the extensive expenditures of getting things cleaned up and back to normal. If there CAO Bins, did you have any comments you would like to make at this time?
Thank you, Mayor Greenlee. I'd just like to echo your comments on the collaborative effort. I think across the municipality, it really has been a community effort with county support on yard waste, our operations crews, our extensive number of contractors, the local businesses, as you've alluded to, and neighbors helping neighbors and coming together. And Councillor Hutchison, I echo your comments as well. Having driven across many of the roads in the municipality, it really is night and day in a lot of areas, and we're starting to see with the nicer weather more and more brush being brought out from residents. So I just want to reinforce to continue to review the township's website and the county's website for updates on waste and recovery as things continue to reopen. Again, I think Mayor Greenlaw, just echo your sentiments, a great community effort, and we're optimistic that through the work of council and a number of stakeholders through to the province that we do have to submit an application. It's not a guaranteed component, but we do have all the documentation necessary to build the application and hopefully seek the funding to recover our portion of our expenditures as we highlighted in the update report to council. That we have 120 days to submit that application. So as the invoices are coming in, we're compiling. We're also waiting to hear back on the support for our business community, which was a direct reach out to the province to be able to address some of the unique circumstances that we have here with our ecotourism business operators. So potentially more to come on that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I commend your leadership through this, Mr. Binns. I'll tell you, it's been a full team effort, and you can't go like everybody's involved. Dylan's team and operations have done an amazing job, but even the ladies that man the front desk with the number of phone calls that have come in, and it's, you know, I understand people are frustrated and they get emotional, but you know what? They handle each call with class and patience, and you know, it's been nothing but short of a team effort, and everyone should be very proud of this team that we're a part of. Okay, so that said, no one else has any comments. We'll move on to item 14, the consent agenda. Does any member wish to comment on this item? Okay. Then, Madam Clerk, can we have a motion to receive the consent agenda, please?
Moved by Young, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the staff recommendations with respect to the items listed under consent agenda correspondence be adopted as printed.
Okay, all in favor? That is carried. And item 15 we dealt with earlier, Madam Clerk. So we'll go to notice of motions by Councillor Clark. Would you like to give us a quick high-level overview of the chicken matter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to my colleagues here on council. The purpose and effect of this motion is essentially to ask staff to review what had happened in Aurelia and their chicken bylaw investigation and subsequent passing of a bylaw. And whether or not that would be appropriate for something to have here in Oro-Medonte. And I just wanted to comment and appreciate the correspondence we've received from the public on both sides of the equation. I think it's important to have public input, so I appreciate that.
No, and I agree, and I think that is amazing that we've had very well thought out comments and respectful comments as well. They were not vexatious or negative. They're just, and it will get us to a better spot, and hopefully look forward to the report when it comes back. Okay, so item 17. May we have a motion for the draft bylaw under item 17, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Lavoie. Whereas the Township of Oro-Medonte is a proud rural and agricultural community that values local food production and sustainable living. And whereas backyard chickens can enhance rural lifestyle and support local food initiatives. And whereas the City of Aurelia has successfully implemented a bylaw allowing backyard chickens following a pilot program. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council directs staff to investigate the City of Aurelia's backyard chickens bylaw and its outcomes. Staff shall prepare a report outlining the key elements of Aurelia's bylaws, its successes, and recommendations on how a similar approach could be adapted by Oro-Medonte. The report shall be presented to Council for consideration within 60 days or whenever technically feasible.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think I misspoke there on 17, so that's item 16. It's the motion coming forward, not
yes.
Correct? So
Right.
I just want to make sure to correct the record on that. Did you have a comment before, Councillor Clark?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could add, whether it's technically a friendly amendment or just additional requests that we do correspond with the Simcoe County Federation of Agriculture. I believe it was recommended by a member of the public, and I would like that added as well.
Okay. And that can be added as a friendly amendment? Okay. No, perfect. The OFA, perfect. Okay. So we've heard the motion. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. Now may we have a motion for the draft bylaw under 17, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-039 be read a first, second, and third time passed, to be engrossed by the clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
Okay. All in favor? That is carried. And can we have a confirmation bylaw, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-040, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025, be read a first, second, and third time passed, be engrossed by the clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 4:47 p.m.
All in favor? That is carried, and I wish all Canadian NHL teams success tonight and for the rest of the week, and hopefully we go deep into playoffs this year.
Bring it home.
Thank you very much, and have a great